Is happiness really a choice? Can we really just wake up one day, look in the mirror and decide, yep, today I'm choosing to be happy? Or is it more like trying to keep a houseplant alive? Lots of good intentions, but sometimes it doesn't turn out well. So let's start with the big one, the idea that happiness is a choice. Where did this even come from, and why do people say it all the time? Well, it goes back to this concept in psychology called positive thinking. It's all about focusing on the good, staying optimistic, and practicing things like gratitude and mindfulness. You've probably heard these ideas before. Maybe you've even tried them yourself. Journaling 3 things you're grateful for each day, trying to stay present and mindful, or setting a positive intention every morning. On the surface, it sounds great. And honestly, who wouldn't want an easy solution to feeling happier? But here's where things get tricky. Life isn't always sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes, no matter how much you focus on the good, life just kinda sucks. There are bad days, stress at work, breakups, and those random 3 a.m. moments where you start questioning the meaning of life. You know the ones. So if happiness is truly a choice, why are so many of us still stuck in this emotional tug-of-war? If all it takes is choosing to be happy, why aren't we choosing it more often? Now, let's bring in some science. Researchers who study happiness, yes, that's a real job, came up with a model they call the happiness pie chart. But before you get too excited, it's not a pie you can eat. It's a breakdown of what actually contributes to our overall happiness. And here's how it works. 50% of your happiness is determined by your genetics. Yup, half of your baseline happiness comes from your DNA. So if you're naturally more on the grumpy cat side of life, you can thank your ancestors for that. 10% comes from your circumstances. Yep, only 10%. That new car, that fancy vacation, your job, where you live, those external things that we think will make us happier, they account for only a tiny sliver of the pie. The remaining 40%, that's the part you can control. It's what psychologists call intentional activity. This includes things like practicing gratitude, staying active, building strong relationships, basically the choices you make every day that can help boost your happiness. So what does this mean? It means that while you can't do much about your genetics, and your circumstances only play a small role, that 40% is where you've got some real influence. It's not all up to chance. There are things you can do that have a significant impact on how happy you feel. But hold on. Before we go any further into that 40%, I've got something super important to remind you about. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the psychology of happiness, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to the channel. I mean, we're all about exploring the mysteries of the mind, and you don't want to miss the next one. Oh, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, so you get a little ping every time we crack open a new question about the human brain. All right, let's get back to it. So, back to that 40%, the part we have control over. If happiness is something we can actively influence, why aren't we all walking around happy all the time? Why aren't we just choosing to be happy in every situation? Well, here's the thing, it's not as easy as flipping a switch. Sure, we can make choices that lead to happier outcomes, but we can't always control our emotional state in the moment. Sometimes, life is just rough, and no amount of positive thinking is going to turn that around instantly. In fact, trying to force happiness when you're really not feeling it can actually make things worse. There's a term for this, and it's called toxic positivity. You've probably seen it online. The idea that no matter what's happening in your life, you should always look on the bright side. It's that relentless good vibes only mindset. But here's the problem. When we're constantly trying to force ourselves to feel happy, we're not giving ourselves permission to experience the full range of human emotions. And guess what? Sometimes you need to feel sad or angry or frustrated. That's part of being human. Pushing those emotions away can actually make them stronger, kind of like stuffing too many clothes into a suitcase. It's all going to spill out eventually. So, if we can't force ourselves to feel happy, what can we do? Well, it's not about making a big, dramatic choice to be happy right this second. It's about small, intentional choices we make over time that can add up to a happier life. Think of it like planting seeds. You don't plant a seed and demand it grow overnight. You water it, give it sunlight, and let it take its time. Happiness works kind of the same way. You make choices, practicing gratitude, building relationships, staying mindful, that give happiness the right environment to grow. Take mindfulness, for example. It's not about sitting in perfect stillness and feeling completely at peace. It's about paying attention to what's happening right now, without getting too caught up in it. It's noticing your thoughts and feelings without judgment, and that helps you stay grounded even when life's a little chaotic. And then there's gratitude. I know, everyone talks about gratitude, but science backs this one up. When you regularly practice gratitude, taking a moment each day to notice and appreciate the good things, you're actually rewiring your brain. Over time, your brain gets better at spotting the positives, which can lead to greater overall happiness. It doesn't have to be complicated either. You don't need to write a novel about your gratitude. Just taking a second to think, wow, this cup of coffee is really good, or I'm glad I caught that sunset can make a difference. So is happiness a choice? Well, kind of. It's not a one-time decision. You can't just wake up one day, decide to be happy, and expect it to stick forever. But you can make choices, small, daily choices, that increase your chances of feeling happy in the long run. It's about building habits that support your well-being, like practicing gratitude, staying mindful, and surrounding yourself with people who lift you up. And let's not forget that it's okay to not be okay sometimes. Happiness doesn't mean feeling great 24/7. It's about embracing the full range of emotions and finding balance. The goal isn't to avoid sadness or frustration, but to make space for happiness where it can grow. At the end of the day, happiness is more like steering a ship. You can't control the waves, but you can adjust your sails. You can't decide what the weather will be like, but you can choose your destination. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real key to happiness. Not in the constant pursuit of joy, but in the little moments we create along the way. So, while happiness may not be a choice in the simplest sense, it's something we can influence. Something we can nurture little by little through the choices we make. And hey, that's pretty comforting, right? Even if we can't control everything, we can always make a few decisions that lead us in the direction of a happier life. And if all else fails, there's always pie. Until next time, take care.